Hello, today I am here to bring you the second instalment in my non-booktube book reviews. I will link the playlist down below. I've only done one so far, but basically just to catch up, this is something that I'm doing this year where I'm making sure to read one book each month that I haven't heard of on booktube, or that I haven't heard spoken about a lot, in an effort to sort of get some conversation going about some new books. I think we're all guilty of focusing on the same books, and it's always interesting to hear something a bit different, and to also, as I say, get talking about some new books. So today I'm reviewing a book that was very kindly sent to me for review, and that is Decrescendo by Gerry Brennan. I admittedly got sent this back in December, I think, and I have been reading it on and off since January, but I've only just finished it, which is really rare for me. Now, I'll go on to explain why, but firstly I will say that this book kind of irritated me because part of me really loved it and part of me just couldn't get behind it. So it's going to be hard to give you a wrap up of what this is about because it's a book that kind of covers every possible philosophical aspect you could imagine. But it's basically, it's a non-narrative book which looks at a lot of different ideas of philosophy. We have fictional conversations between figures of history. We have Freud in there, we have Marx. There's even a section which is a conversation between Adam and Eve, and sort of imagines what would happen if Adam were a modern day man who has travelled back in time and is kind of putting all his modern day views on Eve. It's so interesting, and in that respect I loved this book. I loved the themes it explored and the way it explored them. It was so fascinating, and when I picked it up, couldn't stop reading. But because there was no narrative, when I put it down there was no real incentive for me to pick it back up, hence why it's taken me so long. I mean, if you've been here for a while, you will know I do not take a long time on books. I like to read them in quick concession. This book I took a long time on. I don't know whether that kind of worked against the book in a way, and that's not the fault of the book, that's the fault of me, because I did read the last 200 pages in one sitting and I really enjoyed them and they really swept me up, and they left me feeling like I would like to reread this. I think the problem is I didn't know what to expect going in, so I was trying to follow a narrative. And it isn't one. It's basically a book of transgressions. It's a book of sidelines. You start with one concept and you end up with a completely different one. There's no real, like, these people were walking down the street and bumped into each other and started a conversation. It's just conversation after conversation, and each conversation leads into the other. For me, I think overall, not having a narrative didn't work, and actually in the back of the book there is a little section about Gerry Brennan. He is a poet and this is his first novel, and it attempts to break away from narrative. That is the purpose of the book. I didn't know that going in. I think I would like to reread this with that in mind, to sort of stop expecting there to be a narrative. I think that's one of the problems with books like this. You go into it and you're kind of looking for a narrative or a plot arc, or, you know, not that I mind books that don't have a plot per se, but it has to have, for me, something to tie it together. I don't know whether it's just because I was looking for that, but I think in terms of my tastes anyway, that is something that I like. Perhaps for me it would have worked better if it was a series of vignettes or a series of really short sections that I know are unrelated. I think that perhaps would have worked better. Maybe the continual stream and the fact that, you know, you'd start with one thought and end with another one. I kept finding that I had to go back and think, right, well, how have we ended up here? And to be honest, there was no real transition. It just kind of flowed. I don't know. I would recommend this. I would say if you're interested in philosophy, it presents a lot of deep philosophical ideas in a very approachable way. I'm somebody who is obviously interested in philosophy, but I've never really studied the subject. I don't know much about it. And I could keep up with this. I knew enough to keep up with it, and I knew the characters that were speaking and sort of a little bit of backstory behind them, but other than that, I'm not the best in philosophy, and I could keep up with this, and I did thoroughly enjoy it. I only gave it 3 stars in the end because overall I think for me narrative is just too important to sacrifice, but as I say, it would be interesting to reread it with that knowledge in mind, and I think definitely towards the end it came together for me. As I say, those last 200 pages I thoroughly enjoyed. I actually wanted to read out a little bit here for you. So this is just an example of the ideas discussed basically. After everything else has abandoned you, the stare, the fit limbs, the strong capable hands, the sceptical mind, the innate independence, the love of planting seeds that you could nurture, the fact that you were beloved. For you, there is no reassurance save this. Noble is in your bones and beyond the bones too, in the sinew and beyond the sinew, in the man and in the ghost of the woman too. This is all I can guarantee to you. This is unstolen and unstealable, beyond the grab of memory and all other things, and this is not merely a placebo of clever words fitted cunningly into place to soothe with artifice, for I know how much you'd hate that. This is the gospel according to what you were. So as you can see, there is some really lovely language in here and some really lovely ideas. There's a section that I particularly enjoyed which looks at the way that men and women approach relationships, and it's kind of done from the perspective of a relationship counsellor who is trying to coach this couple into accepting each other and dealing around their issues, and it basically asks the women of the couple and the man of the couple to write individual scripts about what they think happens when they have an argument, and it looks at the fact that the man is obviously still in love with his ex-wife, but the counsellor very much goes at this from a misogynistic point of view. Instead of saying that their relationship obviously isn't working because the man is still in love with his ex-wife, it's very much that the current partner shouldn't be so jealous of the ex-wife and how unreasonable is she being. It's so funny and so true and so cutting, and it dealt with issues that I really enjoyed reading about. And I would say if you actually like Ali Smith's Winter and Autumn, I would recommend this. I think you probably would get on with this. In the same way that Ali Smith sort of digresses and goes down philosophical paths, this novel very much does the same thing, and again it's very poetic and it's very beautiful language, so it really did put me in mind of Ali Smith, which I didn't expect. Overall, I have fond feelings for this book. It really spoke to me and I enjoyed it, and part of me wants to give it a higher rating, but there is just that fact for me that I can't get over, that it didn't have a narrative, so for me it just can't be any higher. But if it sounds like your cup of tea, I would really recommend reading this, and I would love to hear what people think if they do pick up a copy, and I will see you next time. Bye!